Ink up. Slow down. Write your rhythm with Script and Scribe.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Script and Scribe. I'm Kat, and today we're looking at fountain pen friendly paper from Japan. And I have got 15 different types of paper to share with you. And I still didn't get my hands on one of the ones that I really wanted, which is canopus paper from Yamamoto. And that is available, I think, quite easily in the US and of course in Japan. But not so much here in the UK, and I think we're due to have it back in stock or in stock next month. But either way, I didn't get that one, but I did get several others. So what I'm going to do is test these 15 different types of paper with 4 different types of ink. First up, going with the trusty Waterman Serenity Blue ink. This is just a standard ink, and yet on certain types of paper, it will sheen. It has a sort of coppery, warm sheen to it. Not on all, but you can sort of see it on the edge of the bottle there, a sort of sheening effect. And I better mind what I'm doing because it can get messy, and I've just got little droplets from the bottle on the cover of this Midori MD, but we will move on from that and go on to the next ink, which is one that I tested in my last video. And just to say a huge thank you to everyone who watched and commented on my planner video, in which I was explaining moving away from Hobonichi for 2026, and not because I don't like them, but because I had different needs that I had identified and thought that my new system would better fit. And you'll be happy to hear, if you're a huge Hobonichi fan, that one of the 15 papers I'm testing is Hobonichi, but not the terrible 2025 batch that I had. I have now got a new 2026 notebook from Hobonichi with this lovely Mumen cover, and this is supposed to be the improved Tomoe River S paper, so the Sanzen that has improved on the 2024-25 paper. So this here went through the 2025 paper, the Hobonichi paper, and bled through, so we'll really have this as a control ink. Anything that this or this one is also a very well-known one for bleeding through, the Medusa from Octopus Fluids. If either of these bleed through a paper, then I will put them to the side as not in the top, not one of my favorites. So this here is a shimmer ink. You can see all of the shimmer in there. And then this one is a sheening ink. So you've got a purple base, and then what comes out on top of that as it dries is a green sheening effect. And sitting in between the two of these is one that does both of those effects, and that is Deadly Nightshade. So it is a sheening ink, pretty much like this, and it even has the purple base and a green sheen, but they've got different tones to them. This is more a plum base and a very dark green. This has got a slightly more vibrant green to it, and it also has shimmer, which of course this one doesn't. So it really does sit between sheening and shimmering, and will give us both those effects. So I thought these 4 inks will give us a really good indication of a paper's performance. And I will also be writing on the papers to test with this Pilot Plumex with an extra fine nib. Ignore all of that ink in there. I had forgotten, because I've only recently got this secondhand. Someone was having clear out of Pilots, and I can't resist Pilot pens, and I forgot that this does not take a Con 70. So I filled it up with Waterman black ink and tried to pop the converter in and tried to put the top on, realized it doesn't fit, had to pull it apart, and ink went everywhere. So instead what I had to do is fill up a cartridge, as you can see, and I hate doing that because I don't have a Con 40, so yeah, I might actually sell this on despite it having a really, really nice nib, and of course I can just clean that out, but I just thought I'll use it first and then do all of the cleaning and stuff. And yeah, it is a very good pen. It's an extra fine, and we'll be using that to test how the writing goes, how it feels. Now, initially I thought I'd do this showing you me doing all of the swatches, but I think that's going to take a long time. It's going to be 60 swatches because that's 4 colors and 15 papers. So yeah, 60 times. I think you'd lose the will, and I'll try and make it a bit more compact. And we're going to start off with these 4, which are all cream colored papers. And they give me vintage vibes because of that cream color. So more than off-white, because I've also got another one that almost made the cut, but I thought, no, this is off-white, so it doesn't really fit into the realm of these 4. These ones just feel old school. And one of them really is, because this was a favorite of a lot of Japanese authors. They'd write on Monokaki. I paused because I had to look this up. The paper inside is called Kotobukiya and was first made in 1939 by the grandmother of Masuya's current owner, and originally created for the novelist Fumio Niwa. It's since been used by writers like Yusanari Kawabata and Kenzaburo O, who both went on to win the Nobel Prize for Literature, and Yukio Mishima, who was nominated 3 times. So designed with novelists in mind, it's exceptionally well suited to fountain pen writing. We'll see how it does with the swatches. Masuya, the family behind this, has been making these notebooks in Tokyo's Asakusa district since 1882 and still are today. I love the story behind this, the history, and apologies for any mispronunciations. I will be using brushes to do the swatches. We start off with Midori MD paper, which is smooth without being slick and has this lovely cream tone. So as the waterman ink goes on there, the Serenity Blue, which is a standard one, we can see that it softens the ink color a bit by having that warm tone. And the texture for writing is really comfortable for long sessions. It keeps your writing grounded with a little bit of texture, but it's only a little bit. It is quite a smooth writing experience otherwise. And as I'm looking at this, I'm not noticing either of these 2 inks feathering, and we'll see what that's like towards the end, whether we do have any feathering that develops from any of the 4 inks or any bleed through. But so far with the Waterman and then with this Waringyal Shimmer ink A-Star Spattered Hill, we're not getting any of that developing. Then we go on to this combination of sheen and shimmer from Diamine, which is Deadly Nightshade. Despite the warm background, they do still look very vibrant in terms of the colors showing through. And we're definitely getting some shading when we look at the first 2, especially the top one. And it's drying fairly quickly because we see the sheen develop on this Diamine, which is got this plum base, and then it's got a green sheen on the top. And we're going to have the same sort of dark purple and green match up with this purely sheen, no shimmer ink from Octopus Fluids, and it is a sort of more vibrant purple starting off, but we'll see how that develops. And you can immediately see the green sheen developing, which is really cool. And I'll use the same method for the other 14 types of paper. So results are already here. It's like one that I did earlier, Midori, and you can see I touched it while I still had the Medusa. That's one thing I will say. The Octopus Fluid sheening inks are they're quite thick. They're definitely not watery. It's that sheening effect that you get. The texture is just different, and it spreads, or it does with me. So I touched this and you can see my fingerprints everywhere, but we're going to do a comparison, starting off with this Midori MD. And I found the writing experience really pleasant. This has become a firm favorite just within a week of me using this, since I last did my video about new journals that I bought, and I really love this. So this is a second one that I got off the Codex. The other one is just for my brainstorming, and this one is going to be something else. But we've tested it here, and the Waterman has done amazingly well. You can see the sheening effect there on the blue, and then you can see the shimmer in the splattered hill from Wiringil, and this is the Deadly Nightshade that is a sheen and a shimmer, and finally we got the sheen. So all of them performed well, and none of them bled through. So this is doing fantastic for the cream colored papers. And then we try the Monokaki, which is really got a reputation for that literary greatness, and it does surprisingly well, because when a paper doesn't react much to this Medusa, it just looks purple. I have seen that a number of times, not necessarily with Japanese paper, but a number of times I've used the Medusa and it's like, oh, where did all the sheen go? And this is definitely showing it. I do think the Midori is more vibrant, so I would say that has got the lead, but even the standard one has got the sheen in it, so it did fantastic. But not so fantastic as the Midori on the other side. It's almost bled through to the next sheet there, but yeah, it did good. And I can tell you that it was very nice to write on, so it's a good one. There's no feathering. But that takes the lead, so we'll put that aside and go on to the next comparison and see which one wins this round. This is the Tsubame, and this one was interesting because you can see the sheening effect in the standard ink, but also because it's shaded really nice, you can see the texture of the paper. And I don't think I had that with any of the other papers. So you can just see the lines passing through that, and yet it feels smooth. So that interested me. Perhaps that's an effect of when you have the water on there, like liquid. Yeah, but it shows you the pattern of what makes up, like the fibers making up the paper. And I think that's quite nice for some people. I mean, it's not top of my list of what I want in a paper, but I thought it was pretty cool. And on the other side, it did amazing. And I would just, say this is very, very close. But for me, the sheening effect was better on the Midori and the shimmer effect as well. In fact, the shimmer very much so. So yeah, this was close. I like that. But Tsubame is going on the side. And then we have Life, which I think has got the coolest cover of all of these. This is actually raised. You can feel it like embossing. It feels lovely. It looks luxe. And I like that vintage design as well. It's a B5 size, so it's one of the larger ones that I've got. And the color is very, very warm. So there we go. It's also got a grid. And I thought it did excellent for the sheening. And yet, for the shimmer, I don't really see the shimmer of Wiringil, a star-splattered hill. And I did the same thing I did in all of the other swatches. So I don't know what happened to the shimmer. It's like just gone. And the sheening effect was good. Again, I think Midori has got the lead on there, especially for the Medusa. But they're pretty close for the Deadly Nightshade. And they're very close again for the Serenity Blue. But overall, this one performs better. And then if we go to the side, not bad. So it was only this one that was almost coming through, but still it didn't. It just looks a bit darker, but it hasn't come through the sheet. So yeah, I am really satisfied with that. But for me, the winner of the cream-colored sort of vintage vibe journals has got to be the Midori. So we'll keep that one aside, and then we'll go on to the next category. So the next category for me was workhorses, the ones that we tend to recognize because they are a lower budget in comparison to some of these pricier journals. Okay, so let's have a look at the Stalogy first. And immediately I think, where did all the green sheen go from the previous ones? I mean, if we need a reminder, this is the winner of the cream-colored category, the Midori. And look at that difference. And this is what I meant. It happens so noticeably for the green to just simply disappear on certain types of paper. And that is the case, surprisingly, with the Stalogy. Now, of course, it is, in terms of writing, a really comfortable paper. I love writing on it with just, an extra fine with black ink. Perfect. But swatching, it's looking like it leaves a lot to be desired, because you can also see feathering on the Diamine Deadly Nightshade. And it did okay on the shimmer, but not as good as this. And again, not as good as that. So these two performed all right. I think, you could happily use a standard ink and a shimmer ink to do your swatches, but it does not handle sheening very well. Let's have a look at the other side. Yeah, it does not handle that well at all. In fact, only the standard didn't bleed through. So we're going to say that this is not as good, obviously, as the Midori, but we're not comparing it to the Midori, we're comparing it to its other workhorses. So let's have a look at this Muji. And here we go. Surprisingly, very little in terms of the sheen for the standard one, but we weren't really expecting tons of sheen from a standard ink, so it's okay. Shimmer looks quite good. And the sheening is what blew me away. I was not expecting this for the price to do so well on the sheening. It does amazing. It definitely shows us the Medusa, which Stalogy doesn't. And the vibrancy of the Deadly Nightshade compared to the Diamine Deadly Nightshade there, even though the green is showing through, it's not showing through this way. The plum base is also brighter. Everything is more vibrant on the Muji. So Stalogy versus Muji, surprisingly for me, I mean, you guys might already have known this, the Muji takes the lead. And then we go on to comparing the Muji with the Yusari. And here we go. So for me, the blue pops more because the Yusari does look a lot brighter in terms of its background. But that's the only sort of thing that's standing out to me, that brightness, because it is a lighter color to the Muji. The performance is not looking tons better. It's not providing us with the green again in the Medusa. So it's not as good with sheening inks as the Muji. And let's have a look. Didn't do bad in terms of bleed through. This looks like it almost went through, so perhaps if I had saturated it even more, but it has done well, and it was very, very nice to write on. It felt lovely, so I would happily write on a Yusari. I wouldn't use it so much for swatching, especially not for swatching sheening inks. But it's not terrible for the swatches, but it is amazing for the writing. I really liked the texture. It was smooth, but it didn't feel slippery. It's a tricky thing to describe, other than I really enjoyed, how the nib was gliding across this. So I like this for, a writing journal. Definitely not for an ink swatching one, but I've said that a few times, so I'll stop. This is the Perpanep, and it's the Zara. So there are different types of Perpanep. There's a Zara, and another one I think starts with a T. Anyway, I got the Zara, and this one mentioned that it had texture. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go for the one with texture. And I really enjoyed the toothiness. I don't know if you can hear that. That is the toothiest paper that I used in all of the swatches in comparison to the smoothness of all of the others. Yeah, so I enjoyed that. But as you can tell, it feathered, so it did not do amazingly well. And also in terms of the Deadly Nightshade, you can't even see the base. You can definitely see the sheen, which is, makes a difference. Usually it's like, oh, this is only showing the base and not showing the sheen. This one went full out, showing you the sheen, and you can barely see the plum base to it. So I don't think that's what I would be looking for. It depends on what you like in your sheening effect, but that is not what I'd want. And definitely you wouldn't want it to be feathering like that. In fact, I think that's bled through to the other side. It just feels that way already. So let's turn it over. Yeah, and almost onto the next page as well, through the sheet and onto there. So it doesn't pass muster for that, but it is really fun to write on if you like something toothy. Can you imagine the scratch sound of this with like a Sailor extra fine nib? In fact, let me just do the pilot one. It's not as pencil-like feedback as a Sailor, but I think you can still hear it. Okay, and then we go on to another Kokuyo, because the Perpanep was a Kokuyo. And this is a soft ring, and I really enjoyed that. I don't know, I like tactile things, and I don't like hard spiral bound notebooks. So this has actually sort of like softened me towards spiral bound, because I could live with this. I would be happy to have more soft ring spiral bound paper. Okay, so get easily distracted. This is the Waterman Serenity Blue, showing amazing sheening in comparison to the Muji. And shimmer-wise, I think this one performed better, but they're pretty much on par. They're pretty much on par for the Deadly Nightshade, because they're both showing the base and the sheen to full effect. And this one seems to have done a tiny bit better on the Medusa. Let's have a look at the other side, because that's usually the telling bit. Oh yeah, so I think the Muji again. Yeah, the Muji has got it. So for the workhorses, this really does surprise me. Muji has surpassed the others and goes into the final round. Our final category is the Sheening Masters, and I have heard so much that is good about Iroful. I forgot that I got the loose sheets one, and the sheets sort of like went everywhere when I opened up this paper, but I wrangled them all back in. I think the positive about this sort of a loose sheet thing is that you could hole punch them and stick them into a binding system like a Filofax. So that's a positive. Not that I have a Filofax, because we just said I'm not really into spiral bound. I would have to find something with soft spirals. So how did this perform? Here we go. Not bad at all. In fact, I like the effect on the diamine towards the end there. I think it overdid it at the start, which I'm not a fan of. And here, this looks really patchy for the Medusa, but I think it handled the shimmer amazing. It wasn't until the next day that I actually realized a problem that I hadn't anticipated, and I checked all of the sheets, and only the Iroful and one other do this. If you touch it, it has not fixed the glitter onto the page. I'll let you know what the other one is coming up. The standard, it didn't actually sheen much. I think I'd have to really zoom in to show you that there's a little bit of that coppery effect on the edges. But yeah, for shimmer, I think it did really well, as long as that didn't bleed through. And writing-wise, it was really comfy to write with. It doesn't feel super smooth. It definitely has some texture to it that you can feel, but nothing on the scale of the toothy Perpanep from Zara. On the back, I'm not that impressed with its performance with the Deadly Nightshade, because although it hasn't totally bled through, it was very close. And the same thing with A-Star Splattered Hill. But it handled the standard and the Medusa sheening one absolutely fine. So we will compare that to the other ones that are supposed to be really good for the sheening effect. And the next one I'm going to share with you is one that I've already shared with you, because it's where I did my October currently inked. And it has got the sheening effect in the standard. It has got shimmer throughout for the Splattered Hill. It has got the diamine Deadly Nightshade. Great effect, except towards the end. So, not as good as the others, but to be fair, I mean, the others probably ended there with their swatches. This is a much bigger page defending my new, one of my new favorite papers. And there, I think this did really well. Again, with the sheening, green sheen visible. It had disappeared in some of the previous ones, and the writing effect was really nice. It was one of the smoothest ones. So let's have a look at the other side. And that's when I was like, oh man, it didn't do that last time. So I think I'd really, really loaded it. It almost went through, but it didn't. So it didn't go through to the next page, but it did go through the sheet here. So yeah, and that as well. I still say it's better than the Iroful in terms of the front, you know, like how the inks performed. The back, they're pretty much, you know, in the same boat with me. I'm not that thrilled with the way that it's looking at the back. But yeah, so I haven't got a clear favorite between the two of them yet. And that leads us on to the cult favorite, the Hobonichi, to see how the 2026 batch of paper performed. And immediately you can see that there is no feathering with number 2, which it did on the 2025 batch. In fact, all of these inks feathered when I tried them on the 2025 batch of paper. So immediately this new batch of 2026 paper is looking like a huge improvement. And I put a little smiley face because, you know, I like writing on Tomoe River Sanson paper, but I was just so not impressed with its ink swatching performance anymore. And it looks like it's slowly making a comeback. I wouldn't say that this feels like the original, but perhaps it never will feel that way. It definitely has to be considered on its own merits, and I think it did well on the front. Certainly, I do feel like this is more vibrant. I don't feel it did very well on the Medusa, but it was still impressing me in comparison to its previous. But that's what I'm saying. I have to just, you know, consider it on its own merit and compare it with the other ones that are considered great for sheening. And it does not sheen as well as this Mnemosyne. And that's very, very clear here. In fact, it doesn't sheen as much as the Iroful either. And the shimmer is a lot clearer on here too. So it's not the best of all three, but is it better at the back compared to these two? No. I was really believing that it wouldn't go through to the next sheet because I've been seeing so many people say that this 2026 batch has stopped doing that. Oh man. Anyway, it's still an improvement because I was getting tons of feathering. I'm not seeing feathering, but I will pop this one away and we keep these two as contenders for the sheening ones because, yeah, right. This is looking, you know, different. I was going to say amazing, and then I realized there's no green in the Medusa. Now, this has a backstory because it comes in a pack of 3. So these 3 come together in a paper testing pack from Yamamoto. And this is the one where I was saying I would have loved to have gotten Yamamoto's newest paper, Canopus, which has got an amazing reputation despite it being so new. And I saw a few reviews and I saw Jet Pens talking about it, and I was like, I have to get it. I just couldn't get my hands on it. But I did get this paper testing from the journal shop. And I thought this is pretty cool, you know, to be able to test 3 small samples of a particular paper. And the first batch was the Yamamoto Bank Paper Takasago Premium, and that's on the smallest size paper, the B7. And this is said to have been produced with a focus on compatibility with fountain pens, smooth texture, ink shading, ink color saturation, and quick drying ink for use as pages in notebooks. And then you can see the little smiley face saying that it's delighted with fountain pens. In fact, it's got a huge delighted face for all, so it seems to be a good paper for everything. And having a look here, I think it is one of the best ones for the Deadly Nightshade, because there's a lot of variety coming through. I do think perhaps it could have had more of the plum, but I'm liking it. I'm also liking that we've got a sheening effect with the standard, and we have got a lot of shimmer. So I think it did well, and let's have a look. It did amazing on the other side. So in comparison to the Iroful, I would go with this Yamamoto bank paper. What do you think? Yeah, I would go with that. So we can put the Iroful to the side. And, oh, this is going to hurt my heart because I'm now so in love with the Mnemosyne. But I think based on that other side, yep, I have to give it to the Yamamoto as well. So with that having seen off the competition, it is just in competition with other Yamamoto papers. So the next one is the Smooth Art paper, which is described as a paper with a smooth texture, and it really is. It's like glass smooth. It really is. Coated with white pigments such as white clay on the base paper. This paper is matte coated, allowing you to experience a smooth writing feeling. And yeah, it really does, but I don't know what that sort of like white clay and white pigments does, because it has absorbed all of the green sheen in the Medusa. It's like there never was, except for those little strands in there. And that always fascinates me about this ink. That, I mean, this is a good control ink for swatching, I think. If it does that, then, you know, obviously it's not going to be the one that you want for ink swatching. But in terms of writing, it really does feel nice. It's only got a smiley face for fountain pens. It's got delighted for ballpoint and gel. So if you're a gel pen user or ballpoint user, definitely look out for Yamamoto's Smooth Art paper, because I reckon that's going to do an amazing job. That said, I mean, that bank paper has got great performance for every medium. So I would be looking out for that one personally, the Takasago Premium. And a quick note again, the sheen for the Deadly Nightshade seems to just sit really on top of the base. There's very little integration, and anything to do with shimmer does not get fixed down. So we'll just give this a little rub there. And let's try that on this one as well, because it's got sheen and shimmer. There we go. So again, that makes it not ideal for ink swatching. It's interesting how it reacts with a standard ink. I think that's quite a nice effect, sort of like shading wise. But you can see that the gold shimmer from the second ink has just gone all over this page. Then we go on to the final one. So between these two, obviously, it's bank paper. That's a winner. So it's now got to see off the sheep clouds bond, which is described as perfectly blended with broadleaf pulp and conifer pulp due to strength and smoothness. When you look through the light, you can see it intertwined like sheep clouds. Now, I'm not sure about that, but I did like the way that it handles the Diamine Deadly Nightshade. I like that effect there. It's a bit heavy on the sheening at the start, and the same with the Medusa, but at least it does the sheening. I mean, compare it with the Smooth Art paper. So I thought that did great. And then I was like torn between the two in terms of which one handles sheen the best. Is it the Yamamoto bank paper, or again Yamamoto but sheep clouds bond? And I turned it over and it became clear that it is the bank paper. So the winner of this round is Yamamoto bank paper Takasago Premium. So we then get a chance to put it all together and have a look. What do we think is the top winner? So this was the Muji from the Workhorses. So this is from the one that is, considered to be a sheening beast group. This is from the Workhorses group, and this is from the Vintage Vibes Ivory Toned Color Papers group, Midori. So those are my top 3, and I just have to decide which wins from there. Obviously, this is my fault, all of that smudginess. Right, focus. Let's see. I don't think any of them had bleed through. So that's not going to be anything to worry about now because they all performed really well in terms of that. None of them feathered. So they really all deserve to be in this top 3. It is all about the aesthetic now of the front page. So in terms of the standard one, they all provided a bit of the copper sheen. They all provided the shimmer in number 2. I think that one did the best for the standard sheening, but that might be because I saturated more at the front, so I didn't do the waving pattern as much as in these. So let's have a look. I think that I'm really torn. I think the Muji is not as good as either one of these. It's amazing, don't get me wrong, but I think it gets position number 3 because of how it handles these two. So everything looks a lot smoother. And again, it depends on what sheening effect you want. If you want something dramatic like this, where it sort of like weaves in and out, then perhaps the Muji would be, a better performer for you. But I like that smooth transitioning that you get in these. So I'll put this at number 3, and then I just have to decide between these two. And I mean, I'm just finding it really, really tough between the Midori and the Yamamoto. Let me know in the comments which one you think it should be. I think the only difference for me, or not the only difference, but the main difference for me is the tones of the paper. This is obviously a really vibrant white, so if you liked vibrant white, you'd go for the Yamamoto bank paper. If you like something warmer, you'd go for something that's soft on the eye, like the Midori. But there's not much between these two, to be honest, and I would just have to go with my personal preference for something that is softer on the eye, which is the Midori. But when it comes to the writing, let's see. The other consideration is that the Midori has a little bit more toothiness. It's got more texture. This one's smoother. So if you like a smoother writing experience, neither one of them is like terribly toothy, but if you like it to be totally, totally smooth, go for the bank paper. And if you like it to be really, really bright and vibrant in terms of the contrast, then again, go for the whiter background, which is the Yamamoto. Personally, I like something softer and I like a little bit more texture. So I will go with the Midori. But for me, these belong side by side. So it feels like a cop-out to say it would be a tie, and therefore I will make my final decision and say it's the Midori. But let me know in the comments what your favorite is. For example, do you prefer this more dramatic contrast in the sheen compared to the sort of effect that we get on the Midori and the Yamamoto? Because this might, be your preference to have that contrast between the two colors more, and this is perhaps too mild. Because every now and then my eye gets drawn there, so even I'm sort of like going, I don't know, maybe this is the way that I should be enjoying the sheening effect more. So yeah, that is it. I'm going to leave it at that. That's my number 1, that's my number 2, and that's my number 3. Let me know in the comments, is it the same order for you, or are you like, Kat, that is the worst, ordering, I would have gone like that, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, whatever. Let me know. We have got Midori, Yamamoto Bank Paper, and Muji at the top 3. And that's it. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to your thoughts, and let me know what your favorite Japanese paper is. Have you got your hands on that canopus paper from Yamamoto? What is it like? Is it as good as they say? Okay, thanks so much, and happy writing.